Hi everybody. Hello. My name is Vee. I will be teaching a class today on drag application. If y'all don't know me, I know some of y'all are some familiar faces, some of y'all are not. My name is Vee. I am the lead artist here at Vee Studio. This is Antonio. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm the Pro Studio Manager for the US here at Forever. I know many of you from me speaking. We've talked to a million times. So I'm so happy to be involved with today because I never get the chance.
Especially for something so awesome as today. So as you can know the scene before we got started, doing our broad cover and everything, we haven't done color correction yet, so we're going to get started with that. But is everyone familiar and comfortable with the idea of broad covers in general? Yeah? For the most part?
What did you use to make that?
Elmer's glue. Straight up Elmer's glue, like three.
Good old 3 layers of Elmer's glue, 2 layers of powder, alcohol before anything else.
Hold it and then okay. So, well, before anything, actually, let me alcohol my hands because sanitation is very important. So we're going to just get started with some color correction on top of Antonio's eyebrows. I know my hands are too slick with alcohol. Thank you. Does anyone know why I'm using this particular shade for the brow cover color correction exactly? Right. Because orange, or rather, this sort of like peachy tone is on the opposite end of the color. So this is going to negate and neutralize that cool tone that's happening. Now, when it comes to like drag applications specifically, you want to be really mindful of the textures of the products it is that you're using. So this particular concealer is a little bit more on the liquidy side. So when you're applying this on top of the brow cover, just being mindful about how much you're applying on top of it and how much is being absorbed into the cover itself. So we are going to go directly on top.
And this one is the HP Skin Concealer 0.3.
That was incredible.
I live here.
Literally. Now when you're applying color correction, especially on top of brow cover, especially on top of one that is Elmer's glue specifically, it is water soluble. So you just want to be very careful with how much pressure and the actual brush strokes that you're applying onto it. So as you can see right here, I'm just pressing and kind of pouncing on top of the skin.
Do you think a brush works better or what?
In my personal opinion, if you're going to be using a sponge, I would say use it dry. If you're going to be using a brush, I personally just like to use a brush. I feel you have a little bit more control over it that way, because I also feel as though that when it comes to a sponge, it can remove a lot more than you actually intended it to. And in this case, we really want the product to actually do the work of it. Putting that on the counter. And buffing it out. You just want to like slightly blend it into the skin. And it's so funny, actually, right before I came here, I had a drag client. So we're getting draggy today. We're getting a little crazy today.
So we did a glitter mustache on them. I shaved for you.
Honestly, it was very cute. It was stuff. So of everyone who is here, how comfortable would we say that we feel with drag? Like doing drag application? Yeah, 2 thumbs up, 1 thumbs up. Okay, kind of middle of the road. Okay. So then for my folks who are feeling like kind of like comfortable with it, what is something that you feel like when you do a drag application that you feel is like a really important tip, topic, what have you? Please feel free to call out as I continue to do this. Sure. What do you tend to use? Elmer's glue as well. Do you tend to use a more cream-based product or a liquid-based product on top of brows?
I took the liquid and mixed in a little bit of concealer and I put it on a palette and dried it out and then I placed it on the brows and used the wet sponge to blend it.
Oh, okay, fab. I Sure, totally. I love that so much. Anyone else? Huh?
Having a fan.
Having a fan?
Yeah, just
So like talk about that.
get everything dried up.
Sure, to kind of like help move the time along a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I love that. I feel like actually a lot of the time people tend to forget that like air and dry down is like a really important thing when it comes to cosmetic application. And especially when it comes to drag and it comes to like brow covers and like color correction and everything like that. It's just time, you know, it really is something that like if you're rushing it, especially with this specifically, you can rush the makeup. I wouldn't recommend to rush the brow cover, you know? That's like the one thing that I would say.
I think for me, keeping longevity in mind,
Uh-huh.
especially specifically someone trying to performing,
Uh-huh.
is a big deal.
Sure.
So a barrier sometimes that happens with this. And then also the practical skin prior to anything. Making sure skin is hydrated, making sure if the new toxin is getting on top of a longer hydration is, so when it stays there much longer.
Totally. Yeah.
And then a good setting.
Absolutely. I really agree with you. And I would even go like a step further and say fixing spray. Even more so than a setting spray. Is everyone familiar with what fixing spray is? You know what that is? Okay, awesome. And then I saw some folks though that they were like a little like, you know, not hesitant, maybe like feel a little in the middle of the road about like drag application. Anyone have any thoughts or questions that like are like specifically coming up for them in relation to that? And if not, that's okay too.
The questions will come as we move along.
I think I'm more like inclined to figure out your process and where you're putting the eye makeup and how you do the eye.
Okay.
Mainly for like where you're gonna put the black, which step you're gonna put the black. Because I feel like sometimes I'll remove like certain areas that I'm trying to put the black so there's nothing underneath the product.
Okay.
So that it's a little bit more like impactful.
Sure.
Because I feel like black can sometimes be like not so dimensional.
Totally. Sure. Okay. I completely understand that. Yeah, when it comes to drag application as well, it's a very like technical process and simultaneously being a little like haphazardish. You know, it's kind of both at the same time. So now I'm going to get color correcting the brows. I'm also going to go now into Antonio's jawline area, just to negate some of the blueness that's coming through from the facial hair. And now I'm mixing 0.2 as well as 0.3 of the color correctors to do this. The reason why that I like to use a couple different colors for this is because there's some areas that have higher amount of pigmentation, like what you mentioned. Like over here, Antonio doesn't have like a tremendous amount of discoloring, so I'm going to use something more along this one. But then in the chin area, there's obviously a lot more cool tone discoloration there. We're going to go with something a little bit more detailed and more intense.
So you're using liquid right now. Would you prefer to use creams or like do you prefer to use liquid in general?
It really is just dependent on your hand, honestly. It's really not like some folks really prefer a stiffer product when they're doing this type of application. I think for myself, it's really just like case by case dependent, you know, like on the skin type that we're working with, on the person that we're working with, but also for like how it's gonna feel on the skin. I think that like with drag, it doesn't have to feel like 55,000 pounds of makeup on your face. You know what I mean? And sometimes you can run that risk with a lot of waxy-based creams that are being applied to the skin. So in this case, I'm just hopping in with a little bit more of like a thinner consistency.
And adding on to that, I will say thinner-based color correctors are a little bit more forgiving. Oftentimes what you can see with either dry makeup or character makeup is when there is the objective to neutralize something and you're using like a really waxy, heavy-based color corrector, you're then now fighting that color corrector. Because you should not see a full grid of orange on your color correction. You should see a balance from the color correction to the discoloration you're trying to neutralize.
I feel like on the shows and everything, usually you're so used to seeing girls put a slather of a beard.
Sure.
And I just feel like it really doesn't make sense to overdo that.
Sure. I think that too, it's one of those things that when you are a makeup artist, it's a very different understanding of the application versus somebody who is doing drag. If that makes sense. Oh my god, hi!
Hello.
So cute. So going into the point 2, we are going to bring this into the perimeter. Start to negate some of that color. I cannot stress enough, drag looks crazy up until the very end. It looks absolutely nuts so long though. So just like let it rock, babe. It's like fine. It's like not that serious. On to the other side. And again, just like super thin. Putting it up and over. You work a little bit more under the gelato. Now you might be thinking right now, Vee, this is taking so long. I want to get into the fun makeup. I don't care. You have to do the step. But the real reason why you should be doing this step, aside from me being attitudinal, is that if you were to just go on top already with like any sort of complexion base, that cool tone is going to peek through really melodically. You know, it's going to shift the actual tone of the foundation or whatever concealer that you're applying. So to go in with a color corrector first is always just going to be a little bit more of a friend to you than anything else. And see how, so think about textural difference, right? I'm noticing that on Kunyo's upper lip area, that a lot of that coolness is still like peeking through. So now I'm going to go in with a heavier cream on top of it. I am using the Harmony 2, but this is the all-in-one, right? Yep. The all-in-one palette, the Harmony 2. There's an orange color corrector inside of it that is really stunning. So we're gonna put that baby. See how intense like this coloring is? If I were to do this everywhere, I have to apply like the highest amount of coverage everywhere possible. So just being a little bit more meticulous about it.
Something I will say when it comes to like, being a makeup artist in relation to doing drag on somebody else, like you said earlier, like it doesn't need to feel like a ton of makeup. Now, there is actually something that happens, chemistry-wise to a guy's face when he shaves. You increase the pH levels, which can affect the makeup even further if you're putting on like a heavy layer in that beard area. So something to be mindful of that you want to avoid those super heavy waxy bases all the way through.
We've done a pretty solid job so far, I guess. And then I'm going to just apply a tiny bit more different. Just kind of press it specifically. woman. Incredible. Okay. So now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just hop in with some of our Matte Velvet Skin foundation powder. I'm only utilizing this to set this color corrector and to apply a little bit more pigment. On top of that, I'm still going to go in with creams and everything like that. Right now, with the color corrector how it is, if I were to go straight in with the cream, it's going to move. It's going to shift and just kind of look bad. I don't know how else to say that. So I am going in with this shade right over here. You would love to know the number, wouldn't you? The 2i30. So again, we're just using this primarily to set, add a little bit more coverage, because then on top of this, we're still going to go in with our creams.
Because there's a little bit more coverage, would you say that it also helps with texture? Where we going?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like as opposed to like a setting powder.
Sure. It really just depends on the formulation of the actual powder it is that you're using, because different setting powders are just going to do different things. It's also important to know, like, are you using a setting powder or are you using a finishing powder? Or are you using a baking powder? What type of powder are you actually using? Because then if you're using a foundation powder, it's just a very different type of powder. You know what I mean? So it's really dependent on, like, why are you using the products that you're using and for what reason? Does that make sense? But in this case, yes, it is going to fill in a little bit of like any sort of texture, going to blur a little bit more, but the actual point of it isn't really that as much as it is I'm just trying to apply a little bit better coverage and set everything. Because this part right here, what I really want to do is that I want to just have the moisture be sucked out of that color corrector. Oops. Yes. And go. Just place my hand back here. I'm going to apply some pressure to the front. You go to me have additional pressure as well. So. Awesome. Something on wow, amazing. Access with this. This is relatively set now. I would say for the most part. I want to go in further, figure this out a little bit more coverage right there. You can. You can. Okay. Gorgeous, amazing, beautiful. So from here, I'm going to take my misty fix. Just do a little spray over. 1, 2, 3.
What was the spray using?
This is the missing fix. Very beautiful, very beautiful. So now I am going in with the UHD stick. If y'all remember this cotton sensible foundation. This one is in the shade Art 370. And I'm also going to go in with the 2R28 in the HD skin. I'm going to do a little bit of a mixy mix of the two. The reason why I wanted to mix these two together was because I really wanted that, like, I love the texture of the UHD cream foundation, and then alongside with the HD skin, I want that longevity of the actual product onto the skin. So just go in under the eye. This is like, consider this my mid-tone. We're not highlighting it, we're not sculpting or anything like that, this is just a mid-tone. And when we're going into the brow area, it has a lot of product already on top of it, we're not trying to disturb it. We want to continue to have the texture be as it is. We want it to be as smooth as possible, and applying whatever cosmetics additionally on top of it as loosely and as lightly as possible. You look like a beautiful egg. And I love that. That's really fun. And the actual amount of skin prep that was done beforehand was super minimal, incredibly so. I am using the backside of my powder puff to pounce in that product. I feel like not that many people know about the incredible power of a powder puff. You guys are laughing, you don't understand.
Well, like an actual like velvet powder
Yes,
puff.
exactly.
Not the ones that are like feel like they're coated in plastic.
Yes, totally. Because when it comes to like these particular ones, the actual finish of it, like on the powder puff itself, it's the fabric that sucks up a little bit of that moisture, but also allows it to continue to blend into it. So it kind of gives almost like an airbrush finish across the skin. So this is like actually really great. It's a really great thing to keep in mind as a tool, especially like say that you're on set and you have somebody who like you don't want to remove too much moisture from them, and you don't want to add too much to it. You don't even actually want to use powder. Just want the powder puff to pick up some of that moisture and not disrupt the pigment load. Alrighty. So now that we have hit maximum A, we are going to go in now with a much lighter shade. So we're going to do something like this, because we're going to start to carve out where the placement of the brow is going to be. Does anyone have any thoughts, any questions, any concerns, any secrets you want to tell me? Yeah. It's sold exactly as it is. Yeah. Yeah. Stunning. Now, when you are doing the brow area and you are trying to carve and cut, I am using the 226. It is a flat powder brush. Super thin, itty bitty baby. You want a flat powder brush, nothing too fluffy. You don't want it to absorb too much of the pigment of whatever it is that you're using. You're trying to essentially stamp it on. So now Antonio's natural brow starts right over there. If I were to start my cut too high, it's gonna make Antonio look like super surprised, and it's not gonna really make sense. If I bring it too low, it's just gonna cut off the entirety of the eye. Why do we even do the brow cover to begin with? Very silly. So what we're going to do is that we're going to use this area right here as kind of like an anchoring point, carve out the rest of it. So now if we're going, let's say that we're going to start it right there. We are just bringing this down. Now, the thing is when it comes to drag, and now we're talking about drag for feminine drag, like specifically, right? Because the rules and guidelines for masculine drag is entirely different. So for what we're talking about today, take it more so as a rule of thumb for like hyper feminine application. When you are thinking of like the actual eye area, we want to open it up as much as possible. Because a masculine feature, and I'm going to use air quotes because women have masculine features as well, and that's entirely fine. But in this case, like masculine features, right? It's going to be more of this like pronounced brow bone. It's going to be a smaller area of eye surface, I guess you could say, that is actually allowing for pigment to be present. For actually like your face analyzing someone else's face, it's going to seem more close at all, right? So you want to just leave it as open as up as possible. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
Even if you actually look at like artwork, if you look at like paintings of like men versus women, like you always see men having a lot more angular features, versus in artwork you always see women having like rounder faces, rounder cheeks, rounder jawlines. I think it was maybe Chachi said like drag isn't about like impersonating a woman, it's about trying to be like the women you see for. That's how I was thinking about it.
Sure. Away. I'm so sorry. So now you might be looking at this and be like, Vee, that's like wildly uneven. It doesn't matter right now. Stop yelling at me. We're just trying to kind of get like the idea, the base of it down first. I'm not going to spend 45 minutes trying to perfect this because I can and I will and I would. And I'm not going to do that because I know you guys have pieces to eat. As I say, as I start to do it.
Maybe I guess say like 25 minutes.
Yeah. So now really this is just an outline. I know that my general shape is going to be over here. I'm going to go back and forth with frames to really refine. So now from here, we are going to go into these are the Aqua Resist Brow Sculptor Chromates. I'm using the shade 40 and 25 to do this. The reason why I like to use 2 different shades is because we're trying to give like dimension to the brow itself. I really am a believer in that like if you're doing brows, you should be using like 2 to 3 shades like in general to kind of give that sort of like 3-dimensional feel to it. But especially when it comes to drag, you want to use multiple shades because like think of it as an illustration in a way, right? Like I removed brows and I'm literally drawing them back in from nothing, right? Imagine this as a piece of paper. To really make a brow look like a brow and to have it be a little bit more on the realistic side, you want to be able to have a couple different shades that are complements of them. Okay. So now from here, let's just get our line going. Now I don't want it to be too thin, so I'm going to add a little bit more of the thickness to the front, and then taper it as we continue to go to the back. Now, that's pretty stunning if I do say so myself. Thank you so much. Thank you!
I feel like the brow sculptors are such like an unsung hero.
Yes.
I agree. I completely agree. So now this area that I went too high on, I'm gonna just go over it. It doesn't really matter. Like it's perfectly fine to use it. It's gonna mix a little bit, but that's also okay. Creams are gonna do that. This is the part, kind of like treat this almost as like, this is like your eraser stage, you know? You're trying to get things in place and how you want them to be. And we're still need to get thicker at the front. And then we're keeping it thinner as it's going. So now from here, we're going to go back in with our flat powder brush. And just going in on top to refine that. going on top of the brow as well to kind of get a little bit more refinement to the shape. Something on the other side. Just kind of cut that through. And one more time. And I'm seeing that the other tail is just like ever so slightly thicker. Honestly, sometimes if it's just combating a little bit, it's okay to make the other side a little bit thicker. It's not that big. But fronts of the brow, you definitely want to try to make as uniform as possible. So now from there, you go back in with the brush that I was using earlier for placing up the mid cone. And we just blend it through the very front part of the work. This is going to give like a little bit of a diffusal because when I go in then with the shape 40 to pour more hair-like strokes, it's going to be more prominent that it's there. So now from here, I'm going to just take a step back. Honestly, pretty solid. I'm going, okay. Thank you. You know what? You're good. So now from here, I'm going to go in with the shade 40. Also, does anybody know why I just did that? Why I like took a step away to look at it? Does anyone know? Exactly, yeah. When you are too up close and personal into somebody's face, you can get really lost in the detail. And then 45 minutes go by, and it's the most perfect eyebrow you've ever done. You walk away, and it's like, oh. You know what I mean? Like, damn. Thank you. So I'm just going with the shade 40. And I want to just give a little bit more, just a little more presence to the oils of the brow. And then into the arch.
For brows, in
Yes.
your experience, are you usually using pomade over like a pencil? Over like a pencil?
I missed everything you just said. I'm so sorry.
As far as like pomades go, are you usually using pomade over a pencil?
They're just different uses. Completely different uses. In this case, particularly, I'm using this because I'm trying to like roughly match it. Like I'm trying to make it happen with like something very quick. With a pencil, you can absolutely be able to do it. You have a lot more refinement and you have a lot more technical skill when it comes to the pencil specifically because it is so small. So you have a lot more control in that sense. But you're kind of sacrificing time for control.
And I know texturally it's also like a little bit more harder.
Yeah, exactly. So like what I would say is that say that you want to go with a pencil, go in with a pencil later after you have already set everything down, the powders and everything. Because if you're going to go in with a pencil now, it wouldn't do anything, honestly. And if you're to go in later, after you have like set things down and everything, you'll be able to get a little bit more of like that hair-like fine flip that you're looking for. Okay. Are they perfectly symmetrical? No. Is that okay? Yes.
For like dragging character makeup,
It's fine.
The way I always tell everybody, I'm like, try signing your name exactly the same twice, never gonna happen. Drawing on new brows, never gonna be the same.
And obviously, we strive for perfection. Obviously, we do as makeup artists. But if we get close enough to it, that's good enough. Except when it's like a super close-up shot that's going to be presented on the Sephora gondola, then like maybe do better. So now from here, we're going to go in. I'm going to start to do a little bit of like a sculpting around the face. So I'm going to go in with the artificial crayons. Have we tried these out yet? Do we have any thoughts, any initial thoughts or anything? You love them? Oh my god, me too! Oh my god, me too! So now, again, when we're thinking about more feminine structures, right? We're thinking about round, we're thinking about up, okay? So now, if we blend down, what it's going to do is it's actually going to create a shadow, and it's going to make this area of the face look more sullen and sunken in. So when we want to provide a little bit more of like that rounding of the cheek, adding more volume, adding more shapeliness to it, we want to blend up. So I'm going to take, this is in the shade Rubber Walnut. Now you might be looking at this and being like, that's like really pink, or like really like warm inside of that tone. It's fine. It's okay. Because we're going to go back on top of it with something that's a little bit deeper to sort of sculpt that out. The thing is, too, is that like, so when it comes to sculpt, typically, it is cool toned, regardless of what the circumstances. A contour is always going to be big. It is receding back into space. Sunlight is not impacting it as much, so there's not going to be as much warmth inside of that color. Now, the thing is that not everybody's face can really handle a cool tone like that, especially in particular applications. So like the way that I'm doing this right now, this is going to just get muddy. If I'm using a cool tone, it has to be very technical and very specific placements. Or if someone is just super pale. If someone is incredibly pale, then you probably shouldn't be using a cooler tone sculpt. But in circumstances like this, with Antonio, who has a little bit more warmth, a little more yellow inside of his skin, maintaining and going with the warmth that's already happening is just going to benefit you. So now the one thing that I will say that when it comes to these crayons specifically as well, is that since they are a waterproof formula, you might find that they dry down a little bit quicker than other things. If you apply them on top of a crayon, you're not going to have any issues. If you apply them before a crayon for like an underpainting, you might run into a little bit more of an issue of where it may feel like that it's becoming patchy. It's not necessarily becoming that, it's more so that the waterproof aspect of it has already settled in. You can re-emulsify it with a liquid on top of it. But I would say though, to really actually allow the product to have its best livelihood, I guess you could say, best life possible. So applying it on top of your creams is going to be your best way. Now I'm just taking this, and I'm also running it underneath of the eye on the outer third as well. I'm going to be going back in later with a little bit more of a lighter colored concealer into that area to kind of give that lift back up. But right now, say that if you have somebody who has a little bit more discoloration, Antonio doesn't, but it's just a nice trick to provide harmony. For myself, I have crazy darkness underneath my eyes. So one trick that I like to do is bring my blush all the way into my under eye entirely. Because all that's going to do is just help negate any of that discoloration that you are experiencing. And we are going to bring this color down into this area of the cheek. I'm taking some of this and just running it with the bridge of the nose as well. If you are somebody who does not feel super confident in like a really like fine tooth type of nose contour, that's okay. You don't have to. my biggest tip for that is that when you are applying your bronzer or your contour or what have you, dusting it right out into the center part of the nose, allowing it to blend out, and then going back into it with a lighter color on the sides, like I will be showing you, to just cut it out, gives you that pseudo nose contour. Now from here, I'm going into the shade 608, which is this brown, and I am taking this and only placing it right up against this ear. So, like that much maybe. And when it comes to the blending of this, don't blend it down, meaning under. You always want to keep it upward. You're trying to continue to encapsulate that round shape of the cheekbone. And I'm just taking that shading and whatever is left on the brush to bring it through into the jawline. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to continue to cut alongside the jawline, but what was I saying? Cutting it the jawline. Thank you. To continue to add that harmony into the skin, we want to keep it uniform going down. It's also we've all seen queens who have that super cut into the sides of the cheeks, which it's just a style choice, right? If someone likes to do that, fantastic, amazing. I think generally it's a little bit easier to think about what tools and skills that you already have in your own makeup artist understanding and playing alongside with that, right? So when you're doing a traditional sculpt on somebody, you would do that to begin with, So I'm gonna go over here and I am trying to round out and shorten this area of Antonio's jawbone, right? So I am going on top and ever so slightly, and we're going to take this and fluff it up. We don't want this to look like a straight up line. We are trying to just have this look like a natural shadow that's happening. Because if you cut underneath of the jawbone, you're making it sharper. If you're going on top of the jawbone, you're making it softer because we're diffusing the natural line of what is happening. So now from here, I'm going to just go to sides. Anything that you were applying this sort of sculpt color to, or this contouring color, it's going to make it look like it's recessing in the space, that it's more so down. Or it's just a softer line. So now, I'm just noticing over here that I want to give it a little bit more. I just want to move it up a little bit. I just want to move the shape up a little bit more. So I'm just going in with the concealer that I was using up. I'm just going in that.
Is that the lighter tone or the mid tone?
This one is the lighter tone. This is the tone that I was using underneath the glass. Now I am just going in and I am lightly going across. Remember that I had set everything in powder earlier? I'm just taking now the lighter tone across everything because I noticed that the powder made it a little bit darker. after we had set the color correction, it just made it a little bit deeper. So I'm gonna go in with a little bit more of a lighter green color on top of it to sort of even that out. Now you might be saying to yourself, but V, there was powder there. Oh my god, it's gonna get gunky and crazy. That's also why I went with Mist and Fix earlier to add some hydration back into those powders. We're not trying to make it so that it can re-emulsify. We're just trying to make it so that when it connects with the cream again, it's not gonna get chunky and by that. And that is the technical term. Thank you so much.
No, let's take over one of my trainings.
And you can see it hasn't displaced or moved any of that powder or color correction. Okay, fine. Stunning, gorgeous man. And now we're gonna get into eyes. Yay! Woo! So, when it comes to doing a drag eye, you already know and you already have the tools in your makeup artist kit. Literally and in the metaphorical sense. To do this type of eye. Because when you're thinking about a lift, right? What comprises of a lifted eye? Can someone tell me? A lifted eye, like to lift the eye, what would you do with that?
Probably put a highlight over like in the center, just like make up a little highlight.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great one. Huh?
A good wing.
A good wing, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Anybody else? Anyone have any thoughts about it? I'm sorry? Totally, absolutely, yeah. And these are all things that we do on a day-to-day basis when we're working with clients, right? So it can make it like feel really scary, like when you're like someone's like, oh, I want to drag makeup, you know, like I don't. How would you do that? Maybe you've already done it a million times, you know. Have you ever worked with a full glam girl? Maybe you've done drag. So now I'm gonna go in. This is the Artist to Go eyeshadow palette. This one is anywhere caffeine. This particular one, they're cute little eyeshadow palettes. So now I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna close your eyes here, and I'm gonna just press this pigment to where I want it to be. Now it might feel kind of crazy because like you can see like I'm kind of fully going on top of the brow bone. It's just kind of something that you gotta do. It's something that you gotta do because you are continuing to further that illusion that the brow bone isn't really there. So now I'm gonna do this while Antonio's eyes are closed, and then once he opens up his eyes, we're going to look at it and make amends to it to continue that line, so that no matter which way that he is, it will be that exactly. And again, I am just pressing, and I am tapping. The nice thing too is that the face is still completely unset. So say if I made a horrible mistake, oh my god, I should be put at the stake. It's with creams and I can suggest it. It's not that serious. And I feel like I might sound like a broken record being like, it's not that serious. It's because it isn't. And I feel like that too often we get really nervous and scared about being perfect on our first time and our go-through around it. The biggest thing about makeup and makeup application is knowing when you can remove and go back in and adjust and shift things around. Do you think everybody's hand is perfect the first time that they apply a pigment or a cream? No! Not even remotely. So it's the same thing as like a painting. If you make a mistake, just go back into it and adjust it. So from here, I want to kind of like open up this area and give the illusion that Antonio's like eye is just like much bigger in that area.
Can you go on the roses, please?
Mm-hmm. I'm actually going like onto the brow bone entirely, but from the underside. And then I'm leading it to that wing that I placed on the other foot. Are you seeing like a little bit of what I've been talking about? Watch, you guys are like, no. Same thing on the other side. Now, the reason why I'm going with a dark brown specifically and not a black is because with browns, you have a lot of forgiveness. With black, not as much because of the undertone. Typically, black pigments are going to have that type of cool undertone. Now, remember how I was saying before that it can get really muddy really fast? Same exact thing. So I would say, sketch out your shape of how you want it to be, and then add your black to it. Okay. So now you see how that line kind of moved up like completely, and now it's no longer uniform. Keep your eyes open. Wow, that's it. The eye is a three-dimensional thing in space. The more and more that it moves, you're going to see lines get disrupted, right? Now, think of drag it's illusory in a way, right? You're making an illusion happen. How do you maintain the illusion is making sure that lines and shapes exist no matter which angles that you are or whichever way that a camera might be, right? So now again, same thing on the other side. So now I'm going in with the 144 wavy brush. I have used this for the concealer and the foundation. I've used this for literally everything. I have 6 of them in my own personal kit. It's an incredible brush. If there's anything I can be able to teach you about is the powder puff and the 144 brush. Those are the 2 things I'd be happy with. Well, I mean, it would be a little bit weird if that was all you got, but they're great. So now I'm going in with this more like transition-y type of shade because I want to diffuse the shadow out of the light. And again, it is okay if it gets like a little too heavy, like in the pigment, because I'm going to go back in on top with that cream again to recut and reblend. Because I really want this gradient to be as seamless as possible and not feel too skewed. as I'm going in on top, I'm trying my best to not disrupt all of the products that I'm cutting. So a lot of just like stamping motions versus swiping motions. I'm going to go back in with the metal skin, and I'm going to use this to apply it underneath the rubber. Cleaning up a little bit of the brush. Really tracking that. I'm just following the line of what I have already done earlier. Same thing on the other side. Again, just stamping. The nice thing about this step too is that it's a powder, right? It is going to reinforce all those things that you applied originally, but also now you're kind of starting to officially set that area. This is when the blends really begin to make shape on the face. So now I'm going to go back in one more time with that same shade that I was using earlier, this one right over here. Placing like that. So now we can kind of play around with more of like that swiping motion because things have been thoroughly set for the most part with powders. And you can kind of feel like a tug at your brush. Do you know what I mean? Like when you've not fully set an area and you can feel the bristles kind of like skipping a little bit. Take your brush off, it's okay. Just get back in, fully set it, and then make that. Now another little trick when it comes to doing a drag eye, the actual front of the brow, you want it to be soft, you want it to be diffused, you don't want it to be too distinct. It also sort of refortifies that structuring that's happening there, and it makes it look a little bit more realistic. And you might be saying, hey, no, it doesn't. The thing is that when you're doing drag specifically, it's not that you're trying to make it look like I'm fish, you know, and I'm like this and that and the other. Some people find, you know, whichever way. But the ultimate goal of it is it's an illusion, right? It's not to be plastic tiara. It's to be the feminized form of yourself. It's the exploration of gender. Or so I've heard. I would have no idea of such a thing. Gender, what's that, baby? So just going back in again with that lighter powder. Fantastic. Okay. So from here, I am going to go back into our cream because now we're going to move on to the eyelid. Bring one back into that same color shape. So I am taking that color and I am applying it to the lid. I am angling it upwards towards this outer third of the brow bone area, so that the brown is still kind of doing a little bit of like a liner kind of situation, but not extremely. Because now what we're trying to do is just start open up the eyelid. Also taking this lighter shade. Remember how I said before about the nose contour? That's what I'm doing now. I am taking that lighter color, and from where we're kind of like cutting the crease in a way, okay, we are taking that line and we are running it down the sides of the nose, the side of the bridge. Now that by itself, if you can go to see from where you're seated, has really slimmed out the nose. And I'm taking that color still, and I am running that underneath the eye as well. You can kind of start to see shapes beginning to take form in this step, right? We've applied some powders. We're being a little bit more methodical with our placements of things now. I'd say that you want to do like a really like pinched like middle part of the nose, like to add a little bit of that highlight to it. I'm not going to go too severe with it. You can do it however way that you'd like to. But say that you want to do that. A little bit on the end of your brush. And just diffusing it into the center part of the nose. I'm just taking this brush and fluffing out all the things everywhere. Sort of just like diffusing. Now we're going to take a little bit of that concealer, and we are following the guideline of the underside of the eye. Cutting that up. reason why that we do that, it's stylistic. Simultaneously, we're applying a little bit more of that like highlight to the other part of the cheek. I don't know why I gave air quotes to that one. Mysterious. Stanosha, so good. So now from here, I kind of want to start to set the rest of the face. I feel like we've gotten to that point now where, yeah, I think it's about time. So I'm going with this shape right here. This is the the 1Y18. So I'm gonna take this, and I kind of just want to almost like do like a paint by numbers kind of deal, right? So I'm taking this over here, around the chin, because these are kind of where like the lighter areas are. I'm actually going to go in for the shade right here as well. And this is also like why I like to have a palette like this. That's like, it seems very sporadic and haphazard, but for this type of thing, for this particular skin tone and skin type, it's going to work really, really well. You have your highlights and your sculpts and contours, bronzers, 1-to-1. I am just pressing this around the face and taking that highlight, and I am actually going on top of where we did our original the artist color crayon. Because what this is going to do is that some of that color is still going to peek out from underneath, but it's going to fortify that blend. That's going to continue to be applied on top of it. Control.
So then you can help the makeup artist doing drag makeup versus a drag queen doing drag makeup because we're not thinking.
Yeah. And baking is like such a specific tool to use. Do you know when we would use baking as a tool? Does anyone have any thoughts or ideas about that? Like what kind of person, what kind of skin type, what type of application that would we be doing?
Somebody that already has great skin.
Someone
That already has great skin.
Sure, yeah.
Anything on your skin.
Sure, totally. The actual folks whose faces can carry and hold a bake is a little few and far between. But I would definitely say that for folks who have really oily skin, maybe a lot of like texture that's happening, a bake can be really helpful. And bake and with like pressure, right? You're not just like blah, blah, blah. A bake with pressure can really help with texture and oiliness, those two things specifically. Otherwise, you don't necessarily need it. You can kind of like get the coloration of what it is that you're looking for if you just apply the right pigments and practices. Yes, you do.
Some people like they are already having oil skin,
Uh-huh.
but they need like a glowing look. So what is it?
To make it glowy. So this is what I would say in that case particularly. I would say that when it comes to someone who is oily but they still want like a glowy complexion, there are ways that we can kind of finagle that, right, with our applications. So firstly, you would want to have your skin prep be to mitigate as much as possible the oiliness straight out the gate, right? So you want to use a shine control, right, to really make sure that the skin is going to remain matte. On top of that, you want to continue to use more mattifying products, right? Afterward, it's more so about what sprays you use and how to make the skin look like skin still, right? You have to work in thin layers on top of itself. And then ultimately as well, is that after you have set the skin with a setting spray, and I would absolutely say the Missing Fix is a phenomenal setting spray for that specifically. But if you have somebody with like super oily skin that you have powdered out by wazoo, give them a couple sprays down, let it sink in, maybe give them another spray over it. And then only in specific places add additional powder to take down that shine and take down that moisturizing, hydrating effect of the spray. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? So again, I am going into that lighter foundation powder, and I am going up the sides of the nose. I'm going into the under eye area. This is what some folks would call the matte highlight, right? Where it's not like highlight in the sense of that it's giving glitter and shimmer and everything like that. We're using just a lighter tone and lighter pigments to sort of make it seem like that area of the face is going to be higher up. And you might be thinking of like how much powder I'm using, that it's like, didn't you just say a few minutes ago to not bake in this context? This is not a bake. It's just a very high amount of the product that has pigment inside of it. A bake is going to be fully loose powder that you're pressing and you are maintaining and keeping in a particular area.
Center a little bit.
So with drag makeup too, is that if you want to try to make it not feel as much like makeup as possible, the best drag makeup applications are like, it feels like nothing. It feels like just makeup on the skin. So a little bit of that matte highlight effect. Awesome. So from here, I'm going to go into, I want to say like these two shades for a little bit of that bronzing effect. So this one is 3N54. Then they're both 3N54. LOL. 3R50, that's the one that I wanted. So these two. And now the same place that before that I applied my sculpt and blusher, I'm just going directly on top of that. Now you can really begin to see those shapes that we've been like shaping up this entire time. Because the thing is that like you don't really see it so well when you're working only with creams, because creams have emollient factors inside of them. They reflect shine because they have hydration inside of them. Again, I know I sound like a broken record. Drag is illusory, right? How do you maintain an illusion? You can't have shine on top of the natural bone structure that you already have because it defeats and destroys the illusion. So as long as we maintain that matteness across the areas that we're trying to make it look like we've broken the bones of the face and reshape them, we want to keep those areas matte. In areas that we want shine, like I'm going to bring some shine into underneath the brow bone because I want focus and attention there. But in this area here, I don't want as much attention there because I'm trying to make it look like that the brow bone is sort of a shape back. I go in a little bit of that bronzing up to the sides of the forehead. Does Antonio really need a forehead contour? Like, not at all. This is purely just to add a little bit of harmony. A small forehead. You can pay a lot of money for that.
Well, no, so fun fact, I started making with drag queen. I used to glue down the sides of my hair so I could widen my forehead, actually. and then paint the more foundation to make it look larger.
Great tip.
And then I would glue my wig back over here.
It's a really good tip. If you ever have somebody's face that you're like, I want to remove like that area of hair, like say if you wanted to elongate Antonio's forehead a little bit more, you could have gone in with glue stick over here and done the same process as we did on the eyebrows onto this hair over here. It doesn't just have to be eyebrows. The only place that you cannot do that with is facial hair. Does anyone know why? Anyone have any thoughts about that at all? Yeah. A lot of
open area.
It's a lot of movement that's happening there, and also the hair there is typically much more coarse, much more textured. So it's just like,
But it's because it moves too much.
it's both. It's both, yeah. Because it's a super mobile area. Imagine you have glue on the entire
Oh, yeah.
Dookie Town 500. Are you joking? Oh my god, no way. So I'm just running in this bronzing tones too. Okay. Now I'm going to be going in with the Artist Blush, and this one is in the shade 210. Oh, punch. Ooh, let's get bold, okay? I'm just using that same brush. I'm dipping into the blush right there. And I'm going on top of the cheekbone. Not so much in a swiping pattern, because I'll be real with you, at this point in time, you have a lot of powder on the face. Swiping powder, like swiping, it's not going to do much of anything, because you're not setting anything anymore. The pigment isn't going to just sit there, right? So now at this point in time, you want to just continue keeping that padding motion. Also, another little rule of thumb is that say that you like don't feel like the most confident with contouring, like in its entirety, and it isn't really your thing, like especially in relation to drag, blush is going to be your best friend. You can be able to really feminize the facial structure only utilizing blush. And again, I am just kind of following where I cut before underneath of the eye. And just kind of bring that in. But also now, bring that a little bit lower into the center part of the cheek to kind of give that idea of volume in that area. It might feel a little counterintuitive, right? Because Antonio has very sculpted features, very angular features. Antonio has a phenomenal bone structure, right? But when we're trying to, but when we're trying to play around with like adding and removing volume from places, we're gonna have to kind of work against the shapes that we're trying to have, right? So now, Antonio has great bone structure, but what we're trying to do, we want to kind of counteract that and work against it. So the way in which that we're going to do that is that when we're applying our blusher, we're kind of doing like a circular motion. This is the end of Antonio's cheekbone. It's right there, right? It's very cupped right there. To sort of give the idea and the illusion that it's a little bit more like fatter in that area, it's just placing that blusher into that circular motion right into that center part of the face. And then from there, going back in, I'm going to go back in with my hand that I was using earlier. The lighter powder. Because as much as I am trying to add like sort of volume, I still want it to look like that it's coming from inside of the skin, right? Just because it's drag doesn't mean that every single rule and guideline of makeup goes out the window, right? We still want it to look like it's coming from within, even if it's an illusion. Really, what is makeup aside of an illusion? A very sexy, beautiful little illusion. I'm going back in. I just want to refortify a little bit of the bronze that's not moving. Even fluffing through this upper area. big bush. So now from there, I'm gonna go in with this bone shape right here. This one is the Artist Shadow and Natural Cotton. Wow. And this is the 276 brush. Just a solid powder brush. Going in to our eyeshadow. I'm just pressing it again into that layer here. It really just becomes a paint by number, honestly. And even then still, we are very much fortifying that side of the nose slowly. So now over here, we're going to go in with. I'm now going to take some of that brown shade and go underneath it and blend those out. Okay. All right. The same colors that we were using before. I was talking with someone the other day who was like, I feel really nervous about the other day. This was like 6 months ago. It just bugged my head. Whatever. What did I just say? Thank you. Who they were using a shade that they weren't really comfortable with, like using on the face, and they were trying out something different, right? And so I just said to them, like, why don't you just try stamping it onto your hand first to see how it's going to present itself when you apply it to the face. That was kind of groundbreaking. So this is me sharing this with you. You use your hand as kind of a tester area for how it's going to apply to the skin. I just removed a lot of cream from this brush. I wanted to make sure that none of that pigment is going to be going onto Antonia's face. I went to roll off. It's fine. That is all purely just eyeshadow. I'm just taking that shade and buffing it under. Because now what this is going to do is that it's going to tie into the rest of that shape. Going in now with a darker shade. Applying that. This is continuing to help that shape and structure to lift into the illusion that you're building for. I'm just rebuilding the shape that we had earlier. And now we are going to be going in with a bit of black. And I'm just going with this black. It's just in a smaller area on the outer third of the eye. Now we're going to go underneath the eye with that same black. I am being super precise with this particular part right here. This line is very important for it to be as crisp as possible. Pigment to stay in which where I've applied it. But also fallout at this point in time. You know, this is also why a lot of people do like to do baking, is because of that specifically. I like to live on the edge sometimes. What can I say? But with that being said, if you're doing an eye room, put a press into this thing versus swiping. That's really going to allow more kickoff to happen. Now I am going in with the Opera's graphic pen. Really solid focal pen. The formula of this is absolutely stunning. I will say in full transparency, it remains a little bit wet for a little bit longer amount of time. Once this is dry, it is not going anywhere whatsoever, unless you were to use an active remover or something. Now we're kind of getting to the point of like the eye look where our lines are more and more precise and more technical. If you ever feel fear about how you place your liner, press it from its side instead of just using the tool itself. And then the same thing on the other side. And just going back and forth between opening and closing the eye to just make sure that any gaps that you found we close them. And moving from here, we're going to go into the shade 102. This is more of like a yellow-based microfine blue. Instead of using a like a glitter blue or anything like that, we're going to just go with our settings. One, two, three. With drab, glitter and shimmer really is your best friend. For a couple of different reasons. So when it comes to shimmer and glitter, you're thinking about light diffusal specifically. So let's say that on Antonio's brow, right, that maybe like a couple of hairs were like peeking out a little bit, maybe some like texture was coming through. If you just apply a little bit of a shimmer or a glitter on top of it, it really helps to trick the eye and blur everything that's underneath of it. And it's specifically because of that reflective property. Same thing on the other side, from underneath of the brow bone, onto the eyelid. Something like that, so slightly. Okay, so. Now I'm looking at the brows and I want to just go in with a pencil. And I want to add just a couple of brow hairs right at the front to give a little bit more weight to them. Because over time of buffing and blending back and forth over and over again, you can sort of lose the integrity of the brow. And in adding those clear like strokes, it sort of gives that, it sort of pushes that illusion still that this is natural hair that's coming out of this. Great. Don. Hey, Don. Would you mind grabbing me the lashes, please? Thank you.
You want me to bring in mascara?
I'm sorry?
You want me to do mascara?
I'm going to go first with the. Yeah.
Okay.
So I am just going in and encapsulating the eye. With black pencil.
Right there.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry.
You're making it for 72 years and I never defeated
I
you.
know. No. It's great for seconds. Yeah. Started doing makeup the second you were born. Okay. Now you can do your start while I chop and screw these lashes up. Okay. So now, when it comes to drag lashes, right? We all know the classic 301s, we all know like the big boys and whatnot. I wanted to actually just showcase to you how you go to chop and screw a lash in the moment. If you just don't have a bigger lash.
Also, a lot of eye shapes are not big enough to support a 301. Everyone needs to stop using 301s like the standard. They're gorgeous, love them, but you're gonna have big eyes for them. And cartoon character eyes, I still have big eyes.
Yes. Do you have any questions or anything? Any thoughts? Oh my god. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Awesome. So when it comes to actually like drag lash, we are still trying to maintain that lift that's happening, right? So any sort of like additional lash that we're going to be applying is going to be on the outer third of the eye. The reason being is that that's where we want our emphasis. So now chopping them from the outer third, that little bit that we have right there. And you can go and save the other part of the lash. I mean, we use lashes for random things consistently all the time. Never throw away a perfectly good lash just because you don't really need it. Because I promise you, you will. Okay, just taking glue and applying it to that outer third area. And that's just called stacking. That's really it. So I'm going to take this off. And I want to see where this is now going to land on Antonio's eye. So I cut nothing off at all. Okay. So the thing is that I actually really like that. I really like how that looked on Antonio's eye. The thing is that the lash is way too long. Does that mean that I have to cut it down? Not really, because I'm still trying to get that lift that's happening. So I'm going to have this outer part of the lash just move further out. And I'm going to connect Antonio's natural lash to it. But again, that is not for every single person all the time. You want to be mindful of what it is that you are actually applying to the eye, because some people's eyes really can't go there. Just because you have a big lash doesn't mean that you have to use it. I was working with Lauren Allred, if you know that singer, and she has beautiful eyes. Itty bitty baby. Oh my god, so tiny. I had to go in on these huge lashes that she wanted and literally chop into them over and over again just to shrink them down enough for her to be able to wear them. The thing is that you can still do that. You can still chop and screw a lash to make sure that it fits whomever it is that you're working on.
I used to use Vee bump my lashes when I did drag. I'm surprised I'm not blind.
I'm screaming.
What, you tried it? Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Great. Okay, awesome. So now later I'm going to add a little bit of lash glue to Antonio's lashes. Well, actually, it's actually kind of annoying to take off, so I'm not going to do that. But what you can be able to do to connect the lashes together, run a little bit of lash glue into a spoolie, run it through the actual lash itself, and press it into your falsies on top of it.
I know you're not supposed to see it, but the outer third of the band is like nowhere near my natural lash line. It's actually right below where my natural crease is, so it's able to lift up past where the line was already lifting so much. Because if you did it like on my lash line, it'd be like a little wonky lash.
Yeah, it would be like Droop City. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to chop off that other side. I knew where I put my scissors. They're right here. I found them. Also, fun little tip is that if you ever feel as though that your lash glue is just like not drying fast enough or it's not connecting well enough, apply some to the actual lid and still apply some to the lash effect. The reason being is that the body heat that you have that you're producing is going to more quickly activate the lash glue than just regular air that is just stagnant within the room. It's just going to ensure that that lash is locked in. George. Now, can you do that ahead of time? Absolutely you can. Completely you can. I just wanted to show y'all.
I offered to go ahead of time for her.
And I'm annoying, so I said no. So now we're gonna go into the last step, which is gonna be lips. Woo!
Who said that?
So I'm gonna go in over here with versatile chestnut. This is just kind of more of like almost like a burgundy brown, I would say. And now we see Antonio's lip shape. Beautiful lip shape. Really pronounced. Cupid's bow, adorable, right? We're gonna work against it again a little bit more. We're gonna do a bit of an alignment. Because we're also having to take into consideration proportions. I'm actually gonna go in and fully erase that Cupid's bow line. We are just running along the sides. One. Just shaping and defining. I tend to like to go from one side, hover over the top part of the lip to the other side, and then sculpt out the bottom. Some folks do it a little bit differently. That's okay. It's really just depending on how your hand works. This is also the part of the lip that, like, if it's a little messy, it's not that big of a deal because we can always cut back into it. So now I'm going to go in with the shade Boundless Bisque. This one, we're going to take it right into the center part of the lip. This is not how it's staying. I just want to create an ombre effect. I want to add lightness to the very center point. Just kind of really get in. Okay. Now, what I like to do, and like a really great tip to, for yourself as well as just general makeup artists, is that when you apply a lip liner of whatever type, just go back on top of it, go on top of your brush or your finger or what have you, really press it into the skin. Because I don't know if y'all have ever like experienced this or seen it, but like someone's in a lip liner and you can like, it looks almost like it's not a part of their face, if that makes sense. It's a very weird thing that sometimes happens.
It's kind of like applying your contour and not looking it up.
Yeah. So now I'm going to go in with these are the Rouge Artist Purple lipsticks, and this one is 128 Lively Peony. So now I didn't really want like that intensity of that lightness. I just wanted to make that ombre happen a little bit more than what this would have just done by itself. I'm taking it down and going over that lip liner. One more time. Just like four constant areas. And now lastly, promise. We're going to go in with some of that foundation that we were using earlier. Not that much in a brush. Really just sharing that up. And all we're doing here is just cutting the bottom layer. This is such a great way to, one, really make the lip look like you spent way more time on it than you did, but to also further push that illusion of the lip being as wide as it is, or being as big as it is. Because again, when something is lighter, it's coming out of space, right? And now there's like a little bit of here that I just want to define a little bit more. I'm going to go over the top part of the lid. Right here, a little bit here on the top. Those are barely any products. I've noticed that on the other side of the lip, it's a little bit fuller, so it's on the outside of your lip. And I think I'm pretty happy with this. I think we're pretty good. After this, we'll do a full like setting down with like a mattifying setting spray. I'm gonna skip that step so that I'm gonna be able to remove this. But yeah, ta-da! Thank you. So now feel free if you want to head on downstairs, go to look at some products and everything that I've like talked about today. If you want to get up close and personal into Antonio's space, you can totally do that too. Okay. No, that's okay. Please relax. You guys are so cute.
Then Lori's is not public.
How do we feel? How do we feel?
Now, we're very different how I painted myself. I love it.
Okay, yeah?
Oh, yeah, I would cover the hell out of my
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sure.
She's soft.
Oh, no, I paint off.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that it was educational.
I took notes. You saw me.
Okay, great. So let's head on downstairs. I can help you all look at some things if you want to look at some things. And even in the monitor, girl, she looks stunning. Like eating.
My face, like, you